Appreciating the Growing Pains in Your Journey to Success, episode 211. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and today it's on my mind to share with you or talk to you about what makes people successful, how do successful people behave, and how do we set ourselves up for success when we look at them and we see their actions. So I'm actually going to twist this a little bit or take it on a little bit of a different tangent than where you think I might be going, and I'm going to jump into that in just a moment. Finding amazing employees is the toughest job for any business, and especially for a law firm. You deserve to be the law firm owner you've always wanted to be, but you can't get there without a great team. Get Staffed Up helps you build your all-star team by staffing your law firm with incredible full-time offshore virtual assistants. Work with Get Staffed Up to save money and your biggest resource, time, while they find you the best English-speaking VAs in the world. Hashtag delegate your way to freedom. To learn more, go to profitwithlaw.com/get staffed up. profitwithlaw.com/get staffed up. Thanks to our sponsor, Smith AI. Smith AI is a superior virtual receptionist service for small businesses. They specialize in working with solo and small law firms. I discovered Smith AI a couple of years ago and was blown away by the range of services, which are available at a cost any attorney, even those of you in the smallest solo practice, can afford. Their friendly receptionists respond to potential clients in English or Spanish, screen and schedule new leads, and even take payment for consults. The best part is, they don't just handle these conversations by phone. They also have live agents and chatbots capturing leads on websites and via text message. If there's one growth hack to your practice, this is it. Smith's friendly gatekeepers can staff your front lines. They'll capture new leads while you work uninterrupted. You can finally have the peace of mind that while you're working, you're not missing out on future work. Plans start at just $210 a month for calls and $140 a month for chats. They even offer a totally free chatbot, so there's no excuse. Try Smith AI today and see for yourself why attorneys like Justy Nickel in Colorado say Smith AI receptionists are the secret to business growth and client happiness. Smith AI offers a free trial, and podcast listeners can get an extra $100 discount with promo code ProfitLaw100. That's ProfitLaw100. Sign up and learn more at www.smith.ai. Trust me when I say, don't let another day go by. Try Smith AI. And we are back. So I was thinking, there's two types of rich people out there. You can look at somebody who is rich, meaning they are successful, right? They're a successful business person. They are a successful investor. They figured out how to take money and make more money with it. And they are thoughtful. They are happy. They're nice to others. They are content with life. And then there are people who are rich and they're miserable. And they're not nice to be around. And you wonder, how in the world did they get there, right? And I think that some people who are like that, who are miserable and unhappy, they were born into wealth, right? So they never had to work hard for their money. They never had to earn it. They never had to figure out how to make it. And they got there. Along the same lines, I would even think or argue that a lot of people who haven't been born into it, the money came easy to them. They didn't have to work hard for it. People who had to work hard for their money are generally the ones that appreciate it, the ones that appreciate life. And if we look at those people and we look at what they've been through, we almost can see that the reason they're successful is because they had challenges along the way, because they had problems along the way and they overcame those problems is exactly why they are successful. And, somebody once told me, he said, I was an overnight success, 10 years in the making, right? And that's generally what happens when we look at somebody and we see their success. We look at somebody and we see where they are today in the present and the current situation. It's hard for us to see the journey that they took. It's hard for us to see how far they've come. But the truth is that in order to run $1 million business, you have to have gone through the $100,000 problems and solved them, because the problems at the $1 million level are so much different. They're so much bigger. They're more amplified. And if you're not prepared to handle those problems, if you haven't gone through the thick in the $100,000 level to get to the $1 million level, you're not going to be able to overcome those challenges. You're not going to be able to succeed. I've done a few podcast episodes recently talking about happiness, talking about enjoying the ride, enjoying the trip, and really, paying attention to the present. And I don't want to focus on that again here because I've already made that point, and I invite you to go back and listen to some of those previous episodes just released this past month. But what I want to explore today, what I wanted to talk about today, is this idea that what creates contentment, what creates happiness, is the fact that we actually had to work through problems to get to where we are. If it came easy to us, we would not appreciate it. If it came easy, if you woke up tomorrow morning, let's say you're at $500,000 right now, and your goal is to get to $2 million in revenue. Now, if you woke up tomorrow morning and somehow you got clients through the door and boom, you're a $2 million firm, I'm not so sure that that's going to solve all your problems in life. I'm not so sure that that's going to make you happy. I think that part of what makes somebody happy and content is the fact that they've gone through the journey to get there. It all builds on itself. It's building blocks that allow you to get to where you want. And the truth is that if you accidentally get to your destination, if you accidentally achieve success, the problem is that the first moment that you run into challenges, the first moment that something goes wrong, you don't know how to handle it. You can go back to zero or back to where you were before in an instant if you didn't get there purposefully, if you didn't get there by navigating the waters. So when we understand that, when we look at it that way, when we look at it through that lens, building a business is like the journey that we take as a human being. When you start, the business is an infant. It's a baby. It needs to literally be fed, have its diapers changed. It cannot do anything on its own. It cannot function on its own. The business is completely dependent on you as the owner to make things happen. Then the business starts to grow. And it starts to get to the point where it can start to eat on its own. Leads start coming in on their own without you actually making specific efforts for those leads. And then it starts to learn how to walk. Maybe you bring in your first employee and it starts doing things on its own. That employee starts handling some of the work that you used to handle. Now, if we were to go straight from being a infant or a toddler to a teenager, or straight from toddler to adult, or straight from teenager to young to mid 30s and skip our 20s, we would lose a lot of the lessons and maturity that we learn along the way. Imagine if our 20-year-olds had skipped their entire childhood and adolescent years, and now we've got a bunch of people who didn't go through all of those life changes, all of those bodily changes, and they're running around in their 20s. Imagine what our world would look like, right? The natural transition that we go through in growing up is, I don't know if it's designed that way, but it's morphed into this experience where we build on those experiences, one on top of the other, to create our personality, to create our thought, to create our ability to survive, to create us, to create who we are. And we've only gotten to that point by going through all those stages, by learning to talk, by learning to walk, by learning to eat, by learning to interact with others socially, by learning to process thoughts, by learning to do math, by learning science, by understanding our social societal place and the type of country and that we're in, whether it's a democracy or some other form. All of that education that we've had, all of the steps that we learned along the way, all of that has built up to this place, this epitome of me, of who I am today. And if we look at our business the same way, we can start to appreciate and understand that we need to go through the motions. We need to go through the challenges. We need to figure out the problems. We need to navigate through this process because it is the building blocks that create what we're trying to create. In other words, there is no overnight success. If somebody achieves success right out of the gate, that's good for them. But the reality is they don't have all of the knowledge and the backbone that you have because they skipped those steps. So when they run into issues, when suddenly, like let's say they hit the ground running because they opened their law practice and they started it with a bunch of clients that they already had from from their previous job or their previous work that they did. But they have no idea how to get new clients. They weren't the rainmaker at the previous firm, but some of the clients they were serving came with them. Well, now they might hit the ground running. They might start and know, perfectly how they're going to navigate the first 12 months of business because they've got a full pipeline of clients. And they serve those clients perfectly and everything is going great. And it looks like they are super successful. But then when those clients and client engagements start closing down, they start closing those cases, all of a sudden, they have to figure out how to bring in new clients. And now they have this success that looked amazing, and all of a sudden, they're starting from scratch. And they've gone from this, if you imagine a graph, right? They started halfway up the graph and they went horizontally across, and all of a sudden, they go down to the bottom, and now they got to start over again. We are going through what we're going through because we have to. Now, I'm not saying that we have to make every mistake, and I'm not saying that we have to, that the journey has to be slow. But what I am saying is that what we want is not going to be delivered to us on a silver platter tomorrow. We have to navigate how we're going to get there. We have to navigate a plan, and we have to make adjustments along the way. But when things don't go our way, when things don't seem to work, we have to appreciate those moments too. We have to recognize that that's us learning that what is the right way. That's us learning the next step. Think of riding a bike, right? When we first learn to ride a bike, there's bumps and bruises along the way. I mean, you fall down. You fall off of a moving bicycle onto the ground. It is not fun. But you fall down 2, 3, 4 times, and you figure it out. And you don't fall anymore. Learning to swim. You drink some water along the way. You choke on some water along the way. But after a few times of doing that, you learn how to hold your breath. You learn how to navigate through the water. You learn how to not have that happen to you. Finding amazing employees is the toughest job for any business, and especially for a law firm. You deserve to be the law firm owner you've always wanted to be, but you can't get there without a great team. Get Staffed Up helps you build your all-star team by staffing your law firm with incredible full-time offshore virtual assistants. Work with Get Staffed Up to save money and your biggest resource, time, while they find you the best English-speaking VAs in the world. Hashtag delegate your way to freedom. To learn more, go to profitwithlaw.com/get staffed up. profitwithlaw.com/get staffed up. Thanks to our sponsor, Smith AI. Smith AI is a superior virtual receptionist service for small businesses. They specialize in working with solo and small law firms. I discovered Smith AI a couple of years ago and was blown away by the range of services, which are available at a cost any attorney, even those of you in the smallest solo practice, can afford. Their friendly receptionists respond to potential clients in English or Spanish, screen and schedule new leads, and even take payment for consults. The best part is, they don't just handle these conversations by phone. They also have live agents and chatbots capturing leads on websites and via text message. If there's one growth hack to your practice, this is it. Smith's friendly gatekeepers can staff your front lines. They'll capture new leads while you work uninterrupted. You can finally have the peace of mind that while you're working, you're not missing out on future work. Plans start at just $210 a month for calls and $140 a month for chats. They even offer a totally free chatbot, so there's no excuse. Try Smith AI today and see for yourself why attorneys like Justy Nickel in Colorado say Smith AI receptionists are the secret to business growth and client happiness. Smith AI offers a free trial, and podcast listeners can get an extra $100 discount with promo code ProfitLaw100. That's ProfitLaw100. Sign up and learn more at www.smith.ai. Trust me when I say, don't let another day go by. Try Smith AI. Getting the bumps and bruises along the way is par for the course, is par for the journey. And we have to learn to appreciate those, and we have to learn to embrace them, because that every time that we get a bump and a bruise, that is what is making us stronger. That is what is making you a better law firm owner. That is the growth. That is the growth that's happening. And you cannot see the growth if you're not looking for it. It can feel like challenges. It can feel like problems. It can feel like misery. It can be easy to be unhappy. But at the same time, if you recognize that what I'm doing right now is going through the challenges that is creating that $1 million, that $2 million, that $5 million, or that $10 million law firm owner that I want to be, and this is just the stage I'm in, we can really appreciate the place that we're at. We can really appreciate what we're going through. So don't make mistakes just for the sake of making mistakes. Get help. You know, lawyers, I don't want to put everyone into a box. It's not fair. But I will tell you that what I've observed and what I've heard anecdotally is that lawyers are highly educated, and that we know, right? You're highly educated. But you enter into law firm ownership thinking that there's this innate ability that you should already have. And there's something wrong with you if you don't have it. And therefore, you may be afraid to ask for help. You may be afraid to say, hey, I don't really know what I'm doing. I can use some help. Or you ask for help a lot, too much, and you're going to too many people and getting too many services and hiring too many things to try to fix a problem, thinking you could just throw money at it. There's two extremes. But the reality is that you definitely should have a mentor. You definitely should have a coach in your corner. You should have somebody showing you, hey, look, these are mistakes that you're likely to make along the way. And you can avoid those mistakes by just learning from the mistakes that I've already made or that I've already observed others making. And you can skip this one because here's the lesson you need to learn. And if you're willing to be open to that, you're willing to be open to and recognizing that they're actually helping you skip some steps along the way, then go for it. I'm all for taking shortcuts. But I'm not for taking shortcuts in, like, here's an example. You want to start your own law firm. So instead of starting your own law firm, you go and find a law firm that's already existing, that's for sale, and you buy it and assume ownership. Do you know how unlikely it is that you will succeed to the level that the previous owner was at by just stepping into their shoes and taking off? You just won't. That's why so many of those purchases are structured where the previous owner sticks around for a few years, right? Because then he or she can show you the ropes. They can show you what they've done. They can introduce you to clients. They can show you how they make sales, how they lead their team, who does what, how it's being done. Now, you may not like how it's being done. You may not like the process. You might want to change it, but that's often why they stick around, because part of their compensation for the sale is tied to the business that you bring in those future years. They don't want you to walk in and screw it up. But the reality is that if they don't stick around, you're likely to do that because you're walking in inexperienced as a business owner. You're trying to be an adult before you went through the baby steps. So at the end of the day, when you look at yourself and you look at where you're at, the only thing that I want you to be looking for is growth. Have I grown as a person, as a law firm owner? And am I seeing a positive trajectory financially in my life? If I was at $10,000 of revenue last year, have I at least got to $20,000 this year? If I was at $100,000 last year, did I get to 150? Did I get to 200? Did I get to 250? If my percentage that I was taking home from my revenue was 20% last year, was I able to get it to 30% this year or 40%? Right? You want to look at those indicators, the indicators of success, the indicators of growth, and you want to be able to measure that. You know, I've got a little 5-year-old, 5.5-year-old, and I've got a little girl who's turning 4 this week. And we've got this wooden ruler that's all nicely decorated for kids or whatever hanging on the wall. And literally, actually, my wife does it not at their birthday, but every 3 months. Literally every 3 months, we mark their height on that ruler. And you can literally see the growth of these kids inches by inches every 90 days. That's what you need to be doing. You need to have a growth chart. You need to be measuring the growth. You know, if you take your kid to the doctor and the doctor says, oh my gosh, a year has gone by and your kid hasn't grown. We got to look at this. We got to solve this. We got to figure out what the problem is. Are they eating right? Are they getting exercise? Are they drinking? Like, you know, is it a problem with their growth hormones? Your business is the same thing. If you don't measure it, you're not going to know if it's not growing. You're not going to know. You'll know anecdotally how you're doing, but that's just your feeling. You need to be able to measure it. You need to be able to look at it and monitor it for growth. You need to know your numbers so that you can know, am I moving in a positive direction? Have I helped my law firm move along from infancy to toddlerhood, from toddler to I don't know what the next to child, and then from child to young adult, and young adult to adolescent, or the vice versa, whatever the order is. So I don't want to. Oh my gosh, I hate these sayings like beat a dead horse, or you can't kill a bird you can't kill two birds with one stone, or kill two birds with one stone. I don't know, whatever the sayings are. All these sayings are like animal cruelty things, you know? Anyway, you can't, I don't want to beat a dead horse, right? I I think I said my piece, and I think you get the idea. The bottom line is the takeaway from this episode for you should be, number one, enjoy the journey and recognize that when it gets hard, that's where the growth happens. Number two, and this is another good one, right? You got to get out of your comfort zone, and we hear that a lot, right? We got to get out of your comfort zone. But really, if you know you need to do something, and then when you get ready to do it, you have resistance. You feel like this pull against it, or you start finding other things to do. I'm going to go make coffee. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to make this phone call that I need to make. I'm going to check my email. If you feel resistance when you're trying to do something, that is your growing pains. That is the thing that you need to push through and you need to do. When things are easy, it is easy to stay complacent. It's easy to just stay a baby that's getting fed a bottle and getting its diapers changed. It's hard to learn how to crawl. You got to push through. You got to try. You got to make the effort. So when you feel resistance, that is your cue. That's your clue. That is your inner mind telling you this is where the growth happens. And you got to push through and you got to do it. So you got to challenge yourself, and you got to enjoy the challenges, and you got to push through and recognize that this is part of the growth journey. And then you have to know how to measure your growth. Is it in the number of clients that you've brought on? Is it in the amount of revenue you've brought in? Is it in the amount of money you took home? Might be all of those. But define the yardstick. Define the way that you're going to measure it so that you can see, am I achieving success or not? Because if you're not measuring it on the regular, okay, not annually, do it quarterly. Measure it quarterly. If you're not measuring it on the regular, then you're doing yourself a disservice because you're costing yourself years of growth. You're making it take, instead of it taking you 5 years to become an adult law firm, you're making it take you 20 years. If I told you that $500,000 of take-home pay after taxes was yours to be had 5 years from now, and doing what you're doing, it's going to take you 20 years. Imagine what those 15 years could have looked like if you had that level of income, but instead you took the 20-year route. That's what happens when we stay complacent. We just operate the business day in, day out, and just take it as it goes. No plan, no way of checking and measuring to make sure that we've achieved some milestones. When you're not intentional about growing your law firm, when you're not paying attention to it and you're not taking daily action to move it forward, what's going to happen is you're costing yourself those 15 years. You're costing yourself true enjoyment of life because that could have been your financial freedom, your time freedom. That could have been you picking up new hobbies. That could have been you getting closer to your kids and your wife or spouse. I'm sorry, I don't want to make any assumptions here. I'm a male, but I'm sure many of you are females, or whatever your relationships are, your significant other. Mistake of mine. I apologize. You're spending time with your loved ones, spending time doing hobbies, spending time doing whatever else lights you up, or even within your law firm, being able to spend time on something that's meaningful to you in the pursuit of whatever it is you're doing. Maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you want to get speaking engagements. Maybe you want to pursue a higher cause. You can't do that if you're trying to just make ends meet. Those things are just not an option if you're just trying to make it, you're just trying to survive. And the only way to get ahead of just trying to survive is to thrive, is to be purposeful, to have a plan, to execute the plan, and to have a way of measuring along the way to see how you're doing. So hopefully this all made sense to you. It's just something I was thinking about that I felt like I wanted to share, maybe couch it this way, and see if it helps any of you. Folks, if this is the first time you're listening to the podcast, if you enjoyed this episode, please hit the subscribe button so that you will know every time that we release a new episode. We've got a great guest interview coming up on Thursday, and we're here twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday. If you've been listening for a while, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with somebody who you think might appreciate it, help spread the word. And last but not least, we'd love a rating and review from you in your podcast player. Just hit write a review. It's really simple. Especially if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. I don't know, I'm not assuming that you are, but if you're listening on the Apple Podcasts app, just scroll down in our show beneath the episodes, and there's a button, there's a link that you can click write a review, and you literally just click a number of stars, and then you write a little comment in there. Let us know how we're doing. Let other people know whether they should listen to the show. Go back, look at the other reviews to see what people have written about us. We could always use more, so we'd love to see yours there. That's about it. We're going to end it here, and we'll catch you on Thursday. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have you been enjoying the show? We sure hope so. To make sure you never miss an episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button in your podcast player app. Next week, we will be back with more valuable resources and ideas on how to break the mold and take your law firm to the next level.